Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, that sounds much better. I do get worried when you are in a setup such as this one and you're talking to an audience that doesn't respond. I'll tell you why. It's because while we're talking about Proverbial Africa, there is probably something many of you are familiar with, those that are old enough. When you go back to the days when the late President Nelson Mandela used to greet every leader and every individual by confirming a very simple statement, "How are you?" Do you know where that comes from? How many of you know where that comes from? It's one of the South African Nguni groups of languages. When you greet someone, you don't just say hello. You try to figure out how they are doing. You say sawubona. That sawubona expression has got an essence of connecting with the individual. So when I'm saying to you, good evening, in fact, I should be asking you, how are you? That means I recognize your presence. I'm trying to figure out how you are truly doing. So let's start again. And I'm going to time myself now because to me, you ran over time. And someone said it's African time, and I said I don't believe in that because there is no excuse for keeping you hungry. And if I did that, I think you have a right to be upset with me. And you'll notice that I'm not going to just be one side of the room because I want us to engage in a meaningful conversation. So when we talk about until the lions can tell their stories, all the stories about the lions will be told to glorify the hunter. I have one strong mentor in my life who always amplified the meaning of this statement, and I'm going to just demonstrate it to you. I can commence with this conversation without truly touching on the meaning of what it means for the lions to tell their own stories. Let me just briefly tell you. Typically what happens is, and those who understand the origins of this proverb, is that when the hunters come home, they celebrate, and then they tell the whole village how the hunt was like. But the lion is not there to tell the full story of what transpired. And this is exactly what typically happens in real life. The people who put together this conference, we need to tell their story of perseverance, disappointment at times when speakers pull out, at times the issues, not as the reality, it's the truth, at times the issues of no-show, at times the issues of people who don't submit their bios on time, etc., etc. It's the truth, it happens. And so we got to tell the stories of the people behind the scenes. And we want to say thank you. Thank you for your commitment. Thank you for making this gathering happen. But then I also want to extend it a little bit further. I want to reflect on what has already happened up until now. Because when we talk about Proverbs and we talk about the essence of what they mean in our lives, I think we need to be real. We can't talk about Proverbs as if these are theoretical frameworks that are just left there for those who are smart amongst us. But we need to talk about Proverbs in their truest form. I personally love Proverbs from every generation. And there's a very valid reason to it. You'll figure it out later on. But there's something special about Proverbs that I want you to start embracing. They are packed with wisdom. They are packed with observations of life experiences. They are packed with what people have observed over and over again, and then they've put it in these beautiful, clear, concise terms. And many of you would know many of these proverbs, but I will only focus on a handful. And that also goes back to that essence of until the lions tell their stories, all the stories about the lions will be told to glorify the hunter. And I've seen this in many aspects of my life. But I want to recognize and acknowledge a statement that was made earlier on today, and I'll acknowledge many of them. And that was made by Professor Peter Tufano. I hope I said it correctly. Because I went to him and I asked if I've pronounced the surname correctly. And he spoke about a vision 3 years ago, when the student population in the MBA program was only, the African student population in the MBA program was only 1.5%. And he had this vision that it needs to be 10%. So I'm not the one to just leave conversations hanging and just accept and applaud and say, well done on that. I typically go behind the story. And I went to him and I said, what drove that vision? Where does it come from? Where is it born from? And his response was remarkably practical. Let me put it that way. For an academic, that's an exceptional thing to have a practical response. And his response was, think about what's going to happen in the next 25 years. Which population is going to grow the most? Which continent is going to have the highest impact? So for him, it was being pragmatic. It's about what's going to happen in the next 25 years. And therefore setting a vision of at least a 10% population, which by the way I must say, it's 11%, so he was being modest when he said, we are now sitting at 10% population coming from the African context. But let me go back again and reflect on what Boitumelo was saying here. I saw a lot of passion, I saw a lot of energy, and she was talking about unity. There is another Nguni group of languages which she was quoting, though she didn't express it exactly in its original form. It says, Umuntu ngumuntu ngabantu, which simply means, I am because you are. This is the concept of Ubuntu. It's one of the strongly, highly regarded African proverbs. And it means basically, while we are sitting here, and this is part of the thinking that I've been making in preparation for today, that we need to guard against the winner takes all at whatever cost mentality and attitude. Because the cake is so big, we can create opportunities for everyone to thrive and to succeed. In fact, in our business, we always have this conversation, as much as we haven't fully achieved it, but it goes back to what you started with, Professor, when you said, I want a 10% population to be African. But that's exactly where we are as a business. We always say, as Discovery Insure, what is our vision? Our vision was very simple, to create a nation of great drivers. Why do we need to create a nation of great drivers? Go figure, the numbers in South Africa are so bad when it comes to road fatalities. So you can't tell me that it's just the duty of the government, it's just the duty of civil society. Why can't I, as a business person, come up with a solution that is sustainable? Why can't I come up with a solution? That is why I love the simple definition of what an entrepreneur is. And this, by the way, I learned in Standard 6, which I think is grade 8, if I'm not making a mistake. And the simple definition I learned of an entrepreneur is that it's someone who harnesses the factors of production to solve, underline, a real problem in a profitable way. So in a profitable way, if you choose to be a social entrepreneur, we'll call it in a sustainable way. I'm involved with a couple of non-profit organizations, and one of the key questions that I always ask is that beyond donor funding, beyond all the other sources of income, have you thought about a business model that takes this organization further than yourself? And this is exactly where we are. In this room, I see leaders. In this room, I see people who are capable of changing the world. But it always commences with a simple conversation like we are having today. A very, very simple conversation. That's how Discovery Insure was born as well. A simple conversation. We go for a run with the founders, the co-founders of the group, and I say, I see this vision. I see this thing changing the way South Africa is when it comes to road fatalities. So let me ask you, what is your purpose? Why are you doing the MBA you're doing today if you're doing an MBA? Why are you doing the kind of work you're doing today if you are an executive or any leader for that matter? What is the purpose? I want to throw something very important that I learned from one of my best teachers, who always spoke about where purpose is not understood, abuse is inevitable. That is why if you don't understand the purpose of a child, we call it child abuse. If you don't understand the purpose of power, we call it power abuse. Where purpose is not understood, abuse is inevitable. So you guys are leaders in your own right. You need to start questioning yourself. Do I understand the work I'm doing? Do I understand why I'm doing the things that I'm doing today? Because if you do not understand why you're doing what you're doing, chances are any road will lead you anywhere. That is why the importance of vision followed by passion, tell me that passion to follow through on the vision is so needed. We all need that passion. We can't just be waxing and waning. And this is a message that I want to pass on to all of you, because as an entrepreneur also in my private capacity, one of the key things I've learned is that this fallacy about the corridor of certainty, it actually doesn't exist, because we can create a business model, the best business model in the world, but it doesn't always turn out that way. It's a good guide. It helps us to think about issues. But if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you must be willing to deal and to handle uncertainty. Uncertainty is a daily occurrence. We all know that. We get sick now and then. It's just life. It is so uncertain. So why do we have the arrogance of wanting to have certainty in everything? You see that comment that was made by James, that he who doesn't think that they are worthy of doing small things, they are actually not worthy of doing big things. That's the humility of spirit. And when you accept the level of uncertainty that life throws at us, that's humility at its core. Are you with me? Yes. You are so quiet, you're bothering me. So let me touch on another aspect which is so relevant for the people in this room. And this has been something that I've been focusing on the most in the past couple of months, and it's about access and influence. Our access and influence, I always say, is not just for our own gratification. We need to accept that access and influence is for those who need it the most. Give you an example. If you meet someone who's got a business idea, it's got nothing to do with you, and it's probably not your company's focus. But you've got ideas of how to connect that individual to someone whose business will need that resource or will need that idea. It's not for me to keep it to myself. It's for me to connect those individuals because they need it the most at that time. And the point I'm making, while we are sitting here and thinking about the lions telling their stories, the question I'm going to ask you is, how many people are you giving them the opportunity to tell their own stories? Whether you admit it or not, you are a leader in some form or the other. The kind of resources you have at your disposal, the education, the capital resources, the intellect, is not just for you. Can it not be used to do amazing things to change the world? Is this not an opportunity for all of us to collectively take responsibility to say we can change the world, but I can't do it all by myself. I need you. You need me. We need each other. That's what unity is all about. We may be diverse in the things that matter to us, and there's strength in diversity. We must embrace that. The key message to all of us, including myself, is that we must accept that we are not perfect. None of us is perfect in this room. If you believe you are perfect, I'll pray for you at the end of this conversation. I just want us to accept that there is none of us that's perfect, but we can do the little that we can to make things better for others. Is that fair? Am I asking you something insurmountable here? Okay, so let me conclude. Actually, I still have 4 minutes, 50 seconds, so that's good. I was about to conclude and rob you of the other opportunity to talk about another crucial proverb. There's this proverb that I also love dearly. But before I get to that proverb, let me talk to you about what a good friend of mine used to say. And he said this in a very powerful way recently when his wife graduated and qualified as a chartered accountant. Went for a run, climbed up through the hills of North Cliff. Those who know South Africa know North Cliff very well. Get to the top, and I said, Dr. Madliwa, congratulations, guys, for all the work. She's now qualified as a CA. And he makes this very unexpected comment, and I think we can all resonate with it. He says, you know, Themba, significant moments happen all the time. The thing is, when those moments happen, are we attentive, and are we aware, and are we able to identify those significant moments? I can tell you right now, in this room, significant moments are happening as we speak. They were happening as Tumi was doing the introductions. They were happening as Professor Tufani was talking. The question is, are you aware that that's your significant moment or not? My significant moment about the birth of Discovery in Shaw happened in September of 2013. The group founder, Adrian Gore, was speaking to 1,000 of us who were employees at the time. And that significant moment happened for me. And in fact, I didn't even realize at the time that it was that significant, because I went to him and said, beautiful speech, all the more reason I'm going to go out and pursue my vision. And the question is, what is your vision? My vision, I know it very well. I can articulate it without actually faking it. This is the key thing that I want you guys to embrace here. Articulate your vision with a deep conviction, things will happen. Don't do it just to have a beautiful CV. Do it because it matters to you. If it doesn't matter to you, trust me, we will figure it out. Time heals all things. And will heal even the wounds of those visions that you've strapped along, which do not fit together. And therefore, make sure that your vision is authentic and it's authentically yours. We spoke earlier on with Richard, and we spoke about not being a carbon copy, having the authenticity, having the ability to know that whatever you say, whatever comes out of you, is exactly what matters to you. And if you can have that, it will change the world. There's a song, I don't know how many of you might know for the younger ones, but the older ones will know. There's a song by Eric Clapton, Change the World. Yes, it's about love, but I just want you to spend some time, listen to it again. Change the world. It's a powerful song. The question is, are you willing to change the world? Significant moments happen all the time. Are you aware when your significant moment is happening? Or are you not aware? So on that note, with 1 minute to spare, I just want to close and I say thank you so much for inviting me here. It has been an honor, and I'm hoping that today I've deposited something that gives you the courage to be yourself, that gives you the courage to live a life of principles, and that gives you the courage to move on with a certain level of conviction, never looking back. Thank you so much. I hope you're going to have a wonderful time.